Tell me when you're ready to go.
Okay, I can go ahead and do a roll call if that's okay.
Yeah, Chris, if you go ahead and do a roll call for this meeting of the Presidential Search Committee. Tell us if we have a quorum.
Okay, so we have Trustee Spalding,
Here.
Robert Allen. Not here yet, but we'll see if he joins. Trustee Bauerlein,
Here.
Trustee Cristaldi,
Here.
Chad Choate,
Present.
Joe Jaco,
Here.
Professor Harvey,
Here.
Governor Levine,
I'm here.
Representative McFarland,
Here.
Kenneth Meismer,
I am here, although my video does not seem to be working, but can you hear me as far as the audio?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you.
okay, great. Henry Smith.
Here.
And Bridget Ziegler,
Here.
and a quorum is present, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. I'll call this meeting to order of the Presidential Search Committee for New College, Florida, May 17th. Was this meeting publicly noticed?
Yes, it was.
Good. And before we proceed further, we are on a somewhat of a tight schedule, but we do want to allow time for some public comment if there are any, about 50 minutes or so. Or is there anybody registered for public comment?
If anyone that's an attendee wants to make public comment, just please raise your virtual hand and we'll recognize you. We have Mr. David Land that has raised his hand, so we'll go ahead and recognize him for public comment.
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, go ahead, David, if you can hear us. There we go.
Okay. I actually sent it to you, Dr. Spalding, and.
Yes,
I
I have your comment.
If you want to just read that, that's all I have to say, so I don't need to take any more time. It's just three possible suggestions to the leadership profile.
Yes, no, I have those, one of which I was already going to, some of the language I wanted to change myself. So I have all three of those comments. One on operational responsibilities, referencing higher education. I don't think we need that one. We don't need to do because the previous reference is specifically to higher education. The second one is to general non-higher education. But then your other two, I think, are both points taken about removing the word Florida in the fiscal item 1. I'm going to come back to that with my own. I want to change some language on that one. And then you made the general point about there's no information here about contact information or references. That's a matter of process that we will add as a matter of course. So I will mention that as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
And I don't see any other hands, Mr. Chair, for a public
Good.
comment.
Good. Well, seeing none, that's fine. If there are public comments, they can send those in as well. We can start by asking for an approval of the meetings from April 27th. If I would so move.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Do we need to take a roll call or we just do a verbal?
You could do a voice vote, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me?
You could do a voice vote.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, we can proceed. We've got two matters we want to approve today. The position criteria and the posting information about posting. The longer of the two is the position criteria. I'll say a few things about that to get us going. First of all, I want to specifically thank Chrissy Fitzpatrick and Mr. Galvano, who have helped prepare these and get this to this stage. and I appreciate that assistance as well. What we want to do is look at these and approve these. Once we approve these, they would go to the Board of Trustees. Once they approve that, it would get posted to keep our process going. A general comment, I know that I found some small mistakes that would be considered editing process. Those will be corrected. This is not a matter of time for us to have. I'm sure Mark Barrowline would love to have a long conversation about the Harvard comma versus the Oxford comma, but I think we can dispense with the technical editing and assume those will be covered. Although if you have particular ones, you're welcome to send those along. I'm interested in more substantive things we've either not included or needed to be changed as we go through the process here. I did mention when Mr. Land made his comments. These are the position criteria. The general information would go with this. So for instance, sending in your contact information, how many references, who to contact, where to send it. That'll all be added as a matter of course when we put this into a more formal template and document. With that, I think we can open this up for comments about it. There's one in particular that goes beyond editing that I'd like to make, which is under operational responsibilities, the B fiscal. And this is actually what Mr. Land had also picked up on that I wanted to make reference to. The first reference there talks about a high level of sophistication understanding of the fiscal issues impacting institutions of higher education, including an astute understanding of Florida public university finances. And the intention there was to draw attention to public university finances, not Florida in particular. Someone's coming, for instance, from another state. So I'd like to drop that word Florida, but also add after public university finances to add and state legislative budgeting and appropriations. Given this is a public university, some knowledge of the legislative process for appropriating public university fund, it seems to me, is a valuable bit of information for a candidate. Mr. Gavana, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as we go through these kinds of edits, can we just proceed without objection, or do we need to vote on each one?
So you have it before you without a motion. So I think there are two ways of doing it. You could have moved this and then gone by through amendments, but I think given the nature of this committee, if you go through, everybody adds whatever comments, and then you make a motion based on how you all have amended it here today, and then second, and you can pass it that way.
Okay, so that's excuse me.
So just keep going through it at this point.
Right. Okay. So that's the edit I propose. Unless there's objection, we can. If someone else has another edit to bring up, we can proceed. And we'll vote on the whole package at the end, as Mr. Galvano has suggested. Henry, do you have a hand up?
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me.
And as Ms. Fitzpatrick noted at the beginning, we're recording this so we can get language down, editing down language exactly for making sure we get it typed in correctly. Sorry, you're muted. I heard you a minute ago now, but now your mute's on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. In the first, under the academic accomplishments, okay, when I first read that, I had to go back and read it again because it seemed like there was a clear preference for a PhD, and then I saw or the equivalent executive experience. I'm just wondering whether this can be a bit more, I guess, even-handed, because I'm not sure that a PhD is necessarily a sine qua non for this position here. I think there have been a number of successful colleges that have had non-PhD, non-academics come in, and especially as much as this is a turnaround, that's that's a skill set that is, certainly not confined to the academic
Right. So
environment.
I agree, but why does this language you think this was imbalanced?
I guess so, because when I first read it, I assumed like we're looking for a PhD, and then I had to look at it again.
Mr. Chair.
I mean, I think there are two things in that sentence which were intended to offset that. One is a distinguished scholar or leader dedicated to the advancement of scholarship rights. That suggests it could be a mix. And then a PhD or advanced terminal degree. I would note that an advanced terminal degree can be, say, a law degree,
Yeah, of
not
course.
a PhD, and or equivalent executive experience.
Mhm.
So I'm happy to add something if you think it needs more fleshing out, but I think the intent there actually is to keep that wide open.
Mr. Chair, one suggestion might be to replace the word equivalent because executive experience and a PhD, which is a course of study, using the
Right.
word equivalent might
So just drop the word
equate-
equivalent.
Yeah, or significant executive experience or something like that.
That was my exact word change as well.
So add the word significant replaces the word equivalent. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Done.
so, Mr. Galvano, are you comfortable with that
Yeah,
suggestion?
I think that's a very good point.
Thank you, sir.
All right, there was one other in the collaboration with stakeholders section.
Hold on, where's that?
It is
Yes.
on page
Got it.
3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have the ability to serve as a partner to the Board of Trustees, which is great, the Florida Board of Governors. I would also put in there the Board of Trustees and the New College Foundation as well, because he is an ex officio member of the New College Foundation.
So in the second one, and
Correct.
so partner to the Board of Trustees and
The New College Foundation.
New College Foundation. Okay.
That's it for me. So whoever wrote this did a really good job, by the way.
I had one change I would suggest in the third paragraph of the full document. New college provides students.
Yeah.
We have the phrase a common but highly individualized. Given the changes that may be coming, I wonder if we should offer that characterization or not, and simply delete that and say provide students an education that integrates.
I would have no objection to that. I actually put a common but highly individualized to make sure we were covering both bases. But if we want to drop it completely, that would be fine with me, and just go straight to the point.
Well, can you hear me? This is Bob Allen.
Yeah.
So, if that's a signal of a departure or of a potential departure from a historic academic model that is highly individualized, I'm uncomfortable with the deletion.
Well, I think the point here would be not to signal one way or the other, but just refer to an education. The problem is if it says a highly individualized education by itself, that signals one thing. If we say common and highly, so it might get around the problem by just saying it directly, just say an education. I don't think the intention here would be to signal one way or the other.
I'm okay as long as it's as long as it's neutral. I'm showing my bias towards the type of education that I received, which was highly individualized, and I believe that that's of the essence of what New College is. I believe in a common language, so to speak. At the same time, I'm reluctant to accept, and I'm not sure that this is the right place to discuss it, but any step back from the notion of a highly individualized education is one that rubs me the wrong way. So I'm okay with eliminating it, I guess, at this point. But I actually I don't know if I'm okay with it.
Well, Mark, do you
because-
have, go ahead.
Look, whether it's in this context or other, I am signaling strongly a belief that the president of New College needs to appreciate the difference between a school which does not have the ability to be highly individualized and one that does. And so how we integrate that into the language, I don't have my pen, so to speak, but it's important.
Mr. Chair, maybe one suggestion to accommodate Mr. Allen's important thoughts here, and without infusing the details of institutional policy into the job description overall, is maybe we say consistent with institutional policy as established by the board. I think what Mr. Allen is saying is the direction that the institution has, that the board establishes, is certainly overriding anything in the job description of the president. Perhaps that gets us there on this. But Mr. Allen, I'm not intending on putting any words in your mouth.
Well, look.
Well,
Go ahead.
Hey, Bob, this is Alan. I hope y'all can hear me all right. I'm the one that has the lousy microphone, but I think there's a way to accommodate both here. I think if I'm understanding Bob correctly, first of all, we as a search committee don't have the authority to change the university's academic approach. That's the board's decision to make. Our job is to put out what the university currently does, and leave it to the board at some future point to make decisions about whether individualized learning occurs or not. But I think what we could say here is that New College provides students with an education that integrates the academic rigor of the humanities, et cetera, comma, which may include individualized learning. So it says what we're trying to do, which is integrate the academic rigor of the humanities and the sciences, all the stuff that it says there, and this may include individualized education. So you get a candidate who understands both individualized education and the alternatives, but we're not changing the university's approach to teaching here. So, Bob, does that address your issue?
If I could intervene here, say, I don't think it's the job of this document to set policy. The previous paragraph says the president reports to the board of trustees for the mission of the college, which is the point was made, and so that's already established there. And I think here we say, and you just if people are reading this one way or the other, just refer to it as an education. It later refers to a wanting to find a president that is aware of and will uphold the school's historic commitments. So I don't think it should imply any turn one way or the other here. This is, and then when they're interviewed,
I accept that, Matt and Mark. I accept that. I'm okay with it.
And Mr. Chair, to Mr. Allen's point, this is the gateway. You will vet the candidates. You will make sure they understand the traditions, the individualized study, and have that opportunity. And you're correct that this is more intro versus any authority to make policy.
Yeah, I accept the change. I guess I'm signaling, as I said earlier, my bias towards the historic academic model with the core curriculum. So anyway, we proceed. Thank you.
Understood. I just, but I think we keep this more neutral. I did have to move on in that same sentence a little bit down, and this is more of a some editing change, but it's enough that I wanted to just bring it up. So there's a reference here to create a culture of students looking to explore their intellectual curiosity, students pursue their academic excellence. I would just edit that to say a culture of intellectually curious students pursuing academic excellence, to pursue academic excellence and gain. So I just say a wording edit, but it was several pieces that I'll bring to everybody's attention, but if there's no objections, I would do that as well.
I like it. Yeah, I'm no objection here.
Yeah, and then at the beginning of the next paragraph, there's as the state of Florida's legislative designated, quote, honors college for the liberal arts. Could someone, I don't know, Mr. Galvano, is that the current legislative language? I thought it was the honors college, the liberal arts honors college of Florida was the actual legislative quote.
I thought we had picked that straight up, but to your point, if at the end, after you vote, we'll include that in your
Just check. I don't want, I don't want someone catching that, making fun of us misquoting our own legislative.
Understood. That would be mistakes on us, on me.
That was actually a comment that I had on the introductory sentence. Legislative designated honors college for the liberal arts, and it says and sciences. And I mean, the liberal arts includes the sciences. I just want to make sure our utilization of language there is consistent.
Yeah, Bob, that's a good point. If it is just, it is liberal arts honors college, then that first line should not say liberal arts and sciences, on the assumption that sciences are actually part of the liberal arts.
So under the Florida statute does have a liberal arts honors college. So we will correct that. You are correct.
And then in that first line, it should read the state of Florida's legislative designated honors college for the liberal arts. I would change that just for sake of accuracy, legislative designated liberal arts honors college seeks a new president.
Perfect.
And for what it's worth, the way the statute reads, it uses the word the distinctive mission, which indicates to me that it's not a mission that's shared by everybody.
Right.
To the extent that I don't want to wordsmith this wording here, but I trust the judgment of the chair and our counsel. But the statutory language is that it serves as the distinctive mission as a residential liberal arts college of the state of Florida.
No, that's good. Thank you, Mr. Castaldi, Trustee Castaldi. And so I would change that first line. I've always liked that quote. So undergrad college in the state of Florida's you could say and designated by the state of Florida with the distinctive mission. Yeah, we should fill that. By distinctive mission as a liberal arts honors college somehow has to be in that first line.
Yeah, and it uses the not to be picky on words, but as a lawyer, I tend to be picky on words. It uses the phrase the residential liberal arts honors college, not a residential. So it's got a distinctive mission and is the liberal arts honors college of the state of Florida.
Well, we'll get that language, and to the extent we can, just quote the whole thing.
I have another couple of comments.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Where it says collaboration with stakeholders, in paragraph Romanet 4, a track record of serving as a relationship builder who is authentic, ethical, and humble. And, to me, the phrasing is almost a platitude, and I apologize to the author. I mean, it is a commendable document, don't get me wrong. But one thing I hate is false humility. And I don't really care if our new president is humble. We're we were at the edge of the precipice, and we remain in controversy and in the center of the national educational eye. And I don't give a damn about humility. I want efficacy. And so I I could say it more nicely, but I object to the use of the term humble there. I strongly object to it because it's fake. And another thing I point in the same thing, actually there's three. In point number 4, demonstrated strong commitment to the faculty's participation in governance. All right. So to me, the demonstrated strong commitment of the faculty's participation in governance is one of the key factors that led New College down the path to academic mediocrity with sporadic exceptions of exceptional students that were attracted to our academic model. So I'm not convinced by that. Maybe it's statutorily mandated. Maybe it's, politically correct. But to me, the faculty has had too much of a participation in governance. And the statute, I think, now delegates hiring to the Board of Trustees. So one can say, well, this is an introductory document, but some of these documents, I don't want to establish a record. I don't want the next president to be attacked because they weren't humble, and then the mandate was they were supposed to be humble. I don't want the next president to be attacked because they didn't let the faculty veto some decision that the president of the Board of Trustees made. So anyway, I'm just a little bit concerned about that language. There was one other thing that I wanted to point out. In operational responsibilities, A, Roman M, I.
But before we jump to that, let's deal with these in this section. So,
Okay.
Bob wants somebody who's not humble.
No, that I don't care about humble. I want effective.
To quote George Jones, because I'm sure George Jones is never quoted in a Florida presidential search committee in the record. It's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
Well, it's hard to be
So
humble
when
you've got to chop some big trees down.
Understood. Your point is taken. Would you like to cut the language or put something else in its place?
It's authentic and ethical.
Any objections?
Yeah, I think you should have the ethical needs to remain.
Yeah.
So discover something in a background check or something of that nature. But I agree.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah,
authentic, ethical, and a good character?
Yeah, and I would just say for the record, I think what Mr. Allen is saying is that we don't want disingenuous humility.
Right.
And we don't want an individual who's going to be afraid to execute on the things they need to execute for humility. I would just say for the record, though, I would be equally objectionable to a person who displays arrogance, or because it as I think Bob well knows as an alum, it's not our nature to be arrogant. When you're the winner, you win graciously. You don't have to win with an arrogance. And so
right.
I'm fine removing the word humility. I just want to state for the record discussion here but I don't think Mr. Allen is meaning that we would welcome somebody who was arrogant. I think he's saying we don't want somebody with false humility.
May I offer an alternative?
Go ahead.
This is Alan. How about a track record serving as a relationship builder who's authentic, ethical, and acts with integrity? That's what we're talking about.
Or of good character, something like that.
So, can I reference the other issue that Mr. Allen raised with respect to the strong commitment to the faculty's participation in governance? I agree with a lot of what Bob said there. I think First of all, just in the strictest of terms, the governance is decided by statute, and it's a board of trustees that's appointed by the governor and the board of governors, along with faculty and student participation. I do think it's important that the president that is selected be somebody who understands the importance of the faculty's viewpoint and will seek input from faculty before making decisions.
Right.
I agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, I think if it was stated that way, it provides the flexibility and makes it clear that we do expect faculty voices to be heard.
Well, what
I do-
what if we drop the words, and we just made demonstrated commitment? There's no reason to say strong commitment. And then rather than playing an integral role, it should say faculty playing an appropriate role.
Perfect.
I think that solves the problem. I mean, there is an appropriate role, and they should be committed to that appropriate role.
Let me ask about something that came up earlier with the qualifications about significant executive experience. What if a candidate comes forward, and this has happened in places like Purdue, who doesn't have an academic career and has not worked with faculty before and hasn't had any opportunity to demonstrate this qualification?
Well, isn't it usually understood that demonstrate does not necessarily mean, one way you can demonstrate that is in the interview.
Okay.
That's how I would read it, unless demonstrate doesn't necessarily mean you've had a job in which you've actually practically demonstrated. The committee can read that word as we choose.
Yeah, I would just say here, I think to make sure we're all on the same record, the language that we're talking about here does not require an individual to have worked at an academic as an employee at an academic of higher institution, much like, for instance, the president of the University of South Florida right now, to my knowledge, she served on the board of trustees and is a extremely distinguished member of the community and member of the business community, but didn't come from academia.
To that point, if we went back to academic accomplishments A, where we changed the word if we changed equivalent and to something else.
We put in there significant.
Yeah, and why don't we say instead of executive, how about leadership experience? Because if we put in executive experience, for example, I don't like, if you're Speaker of the House, does that make you, does that give you executive experience or leadership experience? I don't want to inadvertently exclude the interim president from consideration, or,
Yeah, I would say that would be considered executive. I mean, executive here, I think doesn't necessarily mean, governor or presidential. In terms of legislative branch, I mean, it's executive meaning running something from a high managerial point of view.
So,
For leadership, leadership implies to me that you can be the leader of a gang, right? So you're not actually executing the instructions or intentions of some other body.
Mr. Chair, to that point, a speaker is also referred to as a presiding officer.
Good point.
Which holds an executive capacity, and from experience, 2/3 of the job is running an institution, including personnel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for consideration of that.
Hey, Matthew, I have a suggestion in the section of leadership experience. One of the things that's really, I think, pretty key here is that the president is really the public face of the college. And
Right.
so I would suggest in Roman numeral 4, that begins a transparent, inclusive, and approachable leadership style.
Right.
Maybe insert there being the public face of the college, comma, a transparent, inclusive, and approachable leadership style.
Um,
You know, being that I didn't, it may be in here and I missed it, but being the official spokesperson and public face of the university is a key component of a job description for a university president. And if it's not stated in here explicitly, it ought to be. So I agree. Maybe this is the place to do it, but this person, the president, is the spokesperson for the university and is the public face.
right. Yeah, I was seeing whether it comes in anywhere else. Because if so, I actually might change that around so that rather than being a public face university, comma, as an opening clause, that actually becomes the qualification itself.
Yeah, that could also work.
Just, maybe beat that up some.
Mhm. You've got it sort of in collaboration with stakeholders in Roman numeral 6, experience serving as a passionate advocate for a university or organization. But again, I think that might be a good preamble to leadership experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I would change that 4 that you were just referring to, something about ability to reflect strong leadership capabilities as the public face of the university. I mean, I would just turn around and make it more of a positive statement.
That works.
Little farther down in that same section, number 7, I would suggest we don't say passion for students.
Yeah, I agree.
How about a passion for learning? And the belief in the power of education to change lives.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And other things?
Yeah, if we can continue to go down in the order of the document. In operational responsibilities, A, Romanet 1, demonstrated success in leading a large, complex unit or institution of higher education, including administrative experience. I don't think we need the word large. I think we don't want large. What is large? When I think of large, I think of a state university system administrator. And that's not to say that a state university administrator isn't capable. I have great respect for state university administrators, but I don't want the president of Ohio State necessarily being high on the list of who we consider, and nor necessarily would I want the president of Cornell or their provost or something. Things that large doesn't mean good to me. Complex means good, but not large. So I would like us to consider removing the word large.
Yeah, I would actually suggest removing the word both large and complex. And I would suggest saying a leading an academic unit or institution of higher education. I think what's the implication is there is you're leading some sort of office or something of an academic nature, and then it says including administrative experience. This is someone who's worked in higher education. And then the question then is, do you combine 1 and 2? So it's more like 1 or experience serving as a senior level leadership role in a complex organization in government, business, or the nonprofit sector. Right, because we're open to either one of those, and they're not mutually exclusive.
I
fine with
actually
that.
would.
Mhm.
Well, I actually don't agree with taking out complex. You don't have to be large to be complex, and some could argue New College is a very complex institution. So
It is
I think,
complex, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think something like demonstrated success in leading a complex institution or organization, which is inclusive of administrative experience.
The reason you need unit is because in most institutions of higher education, for instance, let's say you're the head of the law school within the unit, within the higher institution. You're not the head of the institution, you're head of a unit. So you need unit. I'm either way, the word complex doesn't either add or detract as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you've been involved in academic institutions, they're all complex because the nation, because higher education is a mess. But
And to be clear, we're not just talking about academic institutions, right? Because the qualification could be an individual who had some executive.
that's why I said we might want to combine 1 and point 2. It's this or that.
Yeah, that clarifies it for me, because I thought that first one would eliminate a lot of potential candidates. But if it seemed to contradict what we were saying earlier about, you may not have somebody that comes from an academic institution.
Right.
It might be somebody that's been completely outside of academics.
And that way you just add or and combine those 2 points. Okay.
If we continue down, commitment in Romanet 5, commitment to and demonstrated success in the recruitment and retention of exceptional faculty and staff, coupled with a track record for mentoring faculty and investing in their professional development, such that they are all well positioned to excel in their respective fields and contribute to the university's academic community at the highest level. Demonstrated success in the recruitment and retention of exceptional faculty and staff. So what we have just rephrased in the previous section was, so the correlative change should be made here. So that we're not locked into someone who is has previous experience running a college.
Yep.
You could just omit that point.
No, remove 5.
Correct.
I think we should, because it limits
Yeah,
us to.
I don't necessarily see a need for it. But with any objections to removing that 0.5?
No.
Okay. And Bob, just so, in terms of editing, when we go through, for instance, some people have noticed some references, sometimes we refer to university and college. We're going to make such things consistent. But one of the things I think we should be especially aware of is anywhere where there's a required or demonstrated ability to make sure it includes someone who is coming from the academic world and the non-academic world as well. Make sure we're.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think, there are small universities, to your other point. So it doesn't have to just be a college person. But anyway, yes, the fundamental point is academic and non-academic are both people we can consider. And my own history in that is I remember when I was a trustee, I sought I was an advocate that the president should be actually someone who wasn't from the nonprofit world or the academic world, but was a CEO of a publicly traded company. I lost that one, but in other words, my mind is open to people outside of academia.
As it should be. Anything else?
Let's see.
The only caveat I was going to suggest is that whatever we approve today, I'd like to have it approved subject to final review by our general counsel. There's a lot of regulatory and board government rules and consistency issues. So I'd like to have it signed off on, not here today, because I wouldn't do that to him, but I'd like our approval to just be subject to a final review by council.
Yeah, understood. I think that's as a general matter, of course.
So your motion today would be to approve for presentation to the Board of Trustees the criteria as revised by the search committee, with direction to staff to make grammatical and other edits, and council to confirm compliance.
So moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. And if we can continue through the document in operational responsibilities, C, advancement and fundraising. An accomplished fundraiser with a capacity to cultivate a broad range of stakeholders, including donors, alumni, and outside supporters of the university. That would be ideal, right? It would be ideal to have an accomplished fundraiser. But sometimes it may be the case that we have someone who doesn't have a demonstrated record, but has the capacity. And I don't want to necessarily exclude that person. But I defer to others. I just want to make the point there.
Digging in the foundation, that construction seems pretty unnecessary to me.
Yeah, I would make a general point, which is I don't think we're going to find not everyone's going to be able to say 100% on every one of these points. These are what we are looking for.
All right.
And
Oh,
I
that's
think
good.
I would be very reluctant to forward somebody who has no fundraising experience. That'll be a real risk.
I retract the comment.
So
I retract the comment.
Yeah, realistically speaking, this person is not going to be out there by himself. Okay, so
right.
The head of the foundation is going to be, he will be part of a team, and it's got to have that sort of charisma that you kind of need to sell.
You could say rather than an accomplished fundraiser, you could say a demonstrated ability to raise funds with the capacity to. That someone could demonstrate an ability to raise funds without necessarily having been an accomplished fundraiser at an institution that does fundraising.
That's true.
Any objection to that? I mean, they're going to show this when they apply and prove these things to us, and it's up to the committee to decide whether those bona fides work. But that way, it doesn't send a signal to someone. Unless you're already an accomplished fundraiser, no need to apply. I think that would settle Bob's point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And obviously, as I referred to earlier, the section here about application and nomination process, that'll be fleshed out more in terms of what we will ask for. For instance, there's, reference, how many references will be required. So there'll be more added to that as well. If there aren't other points, there is a motion and a second on the table. I don't know if Mr. Galvano is capable to repeat the motion in exact word for word form, but generally speaking, it's to advance this criteria with the edits we've discussed, subject to line editing for corrections.
I do
and
have,
also running by
I
legal
apologize, Mr. Chairman, for interrupting you. There's one other question that I have. And I'd like to know if the final section on New College of Florida being an equal opportunity employer, if that language is in its specifics is mandated by statute, regulation, or ordinance.
I believe that's where it's come from. Maybe Mr. Galvano, can you clarify that?
I believe it does. And
I would ask you to just double check that we are not assuming a legislative function by interjecting criteria that are not mandated by law.
will do.
Part of the motion is for the legal counsel to check all these things. So. David Harvey says it may be boilerplate language from HR. I guess to confirm whether it's RHR, meaning new colleges, or it's state requirement. Mr. Gall, I just make sure we're doing what the state requires to be correct here, and not going beyond those requirements to add a language which is unnecessary.
Right, and we went through that exercise on some other agreements already. But I want to double check because the state has established certain disclaimers.
Yeah, just to reiterate.
Mr. Chairman, Ken Meismer here. I'm sorry that you can't see my lovely face, but in any event, I just wanted to follow up on your comments about the difference between college and university. Unless definitions have changed, I think we are still a college and should not refer to ourselves in this document as a university. So you mentioned conforming, but I think it's important to conform to the correct definition.
No, that's right. I meant the reference to new college part of the Florida university system, just to make sure all those terms are correct.
Of course.
Right.
But there are several instances in here in this document where we refer to ourselves as a university, and we're not, because we don't do advanced degrees, I believe.
Well, we only do one in masters, but we're not a university in data sciences, the masters, but we're still not a university, and we don't want, that's not who we are.
It's also not a legal term of art, but we choose to use the language college. I mean, Hillsdale is a college, for instance, and we give out PhDs, but it's not a technical distinction. My understanding is that we will refer to ourselves as college, either by name, New College of Florida, as a college, but we're part of the university system, but we are not a university.
Correct.
Correct. Nor are you a state college in the state of Florida.
Yeah, that's there's a little bit of a sidetrack here, but this board in past iterations has discussed that distinction because the state of Florida has chosen to use nomenclature to designate as colleges institutions that are offer 2-year degrees, and they're fine institutions. So I'm not suggesting anything is wrong with that, but we have and should project ourselves as peers of the University of Florida and Florida State University and the University of South Florida, not peers of Manatee Community College and Tallahassee Community College, and forgive me, whatever their current names are, because we are not the equivalent of what Florida calls a college by statute. And Governor Levine, you may have some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, that's,
I thought that was well stated. That's 100% right.
and the governance is distinctly different. One is under the Department of Education while the other is under the SUS.
All right. That's a great clarifications there. And speaking of clarifications, in the introductory sentence, it says, New College of Florida, a top-ranked public 4-year undergraduate college. And maybe that's what we are, but I want to throw out there that I'm not sure that that's what we should be, given that when I attended, when Ken attended, I don't know about when you attended, Ron, you could get out of college in 3 years. And so I just want to throw that out there that I don't think this boxes us in, but we are not necessarily a 4-year undergraduate college. In my conception, we may be in our present iteration, but anyway, I'm just throwing out there for future consideration by relevant parties.
But I don't think saying 4 years does not mean you can't graduate early. Having said that, I don't think the need to say 4 year. We could just drop it and say public undergraduate college.
But Mr. Chair, that's, we can look at that, but that's where you get into this whole distinction issue. Because if you're a Florida college, you just want to make sure that whoever is looking at this understands you are within the university system.
We're getting our feedback.
I know we're getting up on time. Might I ask our council to give a little thought to proper phraseology in this document? Obviously, there's a bigger issue, but I do want to make sure that we're clearly communicating, nationally as we go on this search, that we're not the peer of some of the things that Florida calls college, that we're peer of what Florida would call university. And Mr. Galvano, I trust your judgment on how to articulate that appropriately.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to go ahead and call the question on the motion that's on the floor.
Good. So we have a motion and a second. Do we need to have a vote, or can we do it by voice?
You can do it by voice.
All those in favor of the motion, which is to accept this document as we've edited today, understanding that there will be line edits for clarification and corrections, and also that it will be inspected carefully by legal counsel to be then sent on to the Board of Trustees. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much for that very helpful discussion, and we will proceed accordingly. The other thing, matter we need to discuss briefly, which should only take a few moments, is a brief document which all it does is list where this will be posted. To give you this list does not imply there aren't other things we will be doing. We will be sending this around to emails and other various forms we have for communicating. We will be posting on our website and doing other things. But this is a list of particular places where we will post this information when it is all set and ready to go.
I have a question on that. I'm not sure of the origin of the document, but given our recent discussions about elimination of the concept of diversity preferences, the list strikes me as inconsistent with that approach. Now, I know it's not politically correct to say what I'm saying, but I wouldn't be involved in this mess if I believed in political correctness. So I object to a decision to, unless we I don't know, Malaysians in higher education. Are we going to do that? What are we going to do? Latin
I
Americans
think,
in higher education?
I think the objective here is just to get it out as broadly as possible. The problem, which I can't correct right now, is the fact that a lot of higher education institutions and publications are themselves choosing to isolate themselves. I think our application.
Setting aside motions and all that stuff, I see us advertising in the Chronicle of Higher Education, and the American Association of University Professors and academic deans and the other things, but I don't support advertising in. The alternative is, I suppose, let's advertise in First Things. Let's advertise in Crisis. Let's advertise in the Journal of the National Association of Trustees and Alumni. No, I'm not happy with this list.
Mr. Allen, let me make one suggestion to you. The wider the net we cast, I think the more sound and strong the decision we ultimately make will be perceived. So my instinct is, although some of your points are well taken here, my instinct is let's cast the net wide, and that way there's less criticism and less question about whether we missed somebody when we ultimately make a decision.
I actually have to say, I think Bob and Ron both raise important points. I think you want to cast a wide net, and I think it's probably safe to assume that anyone who's looking to be a university president or a college president is probably looking at the Chronicle of Higher Education or another broad-based publication. My concern is when you start handpicking different subgroups, all those who are not here, then the question is, why aren't they listed too? I don't see Jewish leaders in higher education. Why didn't we include them? I think
it's because they don't have a publication.
Well, there you go. Okay, so that's fair.
I'm not sure that that's the case. One might argue that First Things is a journal of higher education. It clearly is. It's the leading conservative, Jewish, Protestant, Catholic academic publication out there.
We can add that.
Well, we could
No,
add
but
that.
that's
The question is whether we add. The question here is whether we add more or subtract. And I think the objective here is to get it out as far and wide so we can say we've done a very fair and open-minded search. Anybody who applies will apply, and they will go through our rigorous interviews and all of the above. This doesn't imply we're endorsing those publications or their intent to identify themselves based on their sex, race, or color.
Do we have an opportunity before we publish this to the Board of Trustees to supplement that list?
Absolutely.
Actually, I have a suggestion here. New College is a member of this Association of Governing Boards. And as I said, previously, they'll give you advice on basically anything connected to, and they've got a good relationship with them. Might want to put this to them. When you advertise this, where does it go? What's the best practice here? That might sort of cover you.
Can we do an including but not limited to? I think some folks are concerned that the list is not inclusive, but or something like that. I maybe defer to counsel on how best to word it, but rather than prescribe exactly, I think what we're trying to do is cast a wide net and ensure that we're getting all the best candidates out there so we can pick the very best one.
If anybody who wants to be a college president is not reading the Chronicle of Higher Education, then I question their interest in being a college president. Look, I cannot abide, I can lose a vote, but I'm looking at this and it makes me sick. Okay? Now, and understand, my faculty advisor at New College was Margaret Bates. You know, I have 4 sisters with higher degrees. I mean, this has nothing to do with, chauvinism or sexism or anything like that. It's not bending the knee to the diversity, the God of diversity. So
And-
my
and- and-
objection
and
is strong.
And I understand that, but I don't think it's bending the knee. I think it's us proudly putting our ad out there anywhere and everywhere. And if we say it's including but not limited to, and then add more to this. But I mean, your
Well, then
comment,
let's start with, let's
comment, which
include
I-
them right now so that this doesn't go anywhere.
your comment, which I roundly agree with, which is that this is the state of higher education with which we are disagreeing. I mean, that's why we put at the thanks in the 3rd paragraph about the institution being grounded without free from any bias on race and religion.
Well, then I would like to include First Things,
Okay,
and I would like to include the Wall Street Journal.
And I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine myself with, we're advertising a position, so let's get the word out as widely as we can.
I'll make a motion that we approve this list with the changes that Bob raised.
Trustee Levine with the including but limited to language. It's a question.
Yes, sir.
It's a question.
Yes, I would
I'll
include that.
second that.
with the addition of those 2, and then but including but not limited to.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments, we can go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that's taken care of. So we have in here some space for open discussion. I don't know that we have any. I know we are. These will now go. The second list we will add to it what we just voted on. We will go through the process discussed for the criteria. Those will go to the full board. That the full board will also receive the compensation analysis. And then that will all go to the full board eventually, and to the Board of Governors. And we'll get this posted as soon as possible. We'll probably be in quick communication with everybody about our next next meetings. As we proceed, we are still working on a schedule to get this to the Board of Governors decision, our candidate to the Board of Governors in August.
Mr. Chair, let me just say, speaking for myself, I just want to thank you and the general counsel and whoever else was involved in drafting the position description. I think you did an excellent job, and it was great feedback from the team today. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, all these comments are great and very helpful, and I think we will clean this up as quickly as possible and have a great document.
Yes, I second that all around, and I thank all the members of the committee as well for their time and input.
Any other comments before we move to adjournment? It's now going on 3:15. Hearing none.
That was a motion to adjourn.
Yes. The motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for your time. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.